Hi, my name is Cindy Rang,
And I'm Eliza Rang.
and we're going to make a needle case today. My daughter and I have owned and operated a busy quilt shop in Washington State for over 20 years. We have a retreat center, an active YouTube channel, and a large pattern line featuring our creations. My two sons work on machines. One daughter-in-law is our videographer, and the other is a long-arm quilter. We are a family that love each other, we laugh together, and every once in a while we get some work done. We have a crew that are saints for their efforts at keeping us on track. Thanks for joining us on our wild ride. All right, so we're excited about our project today. So this is the project that we're making, and it's just this cute little needle case, and it's got some pockets in here. You can put your scissors and your needles, different things in there. There's even a little page for your pins or your needles. What we did was we wanted to show you some different options for the front. So when we did our little test pattern, we put some of our fusible web pieces from last week on the front. But what we're going to show you is how you can put a monogram or anything else you'd like. So if you went ahead and got the full kit from us, or if you'd like to purchase a separate kit, this is what's coming in your kit. It's either already in your box and it's labeled Needlecase, or for $11 you can order a kit just like this. It comes pre-cut with everything that you need. So you do have a printed pattern in here. The other thing that you have along with your printed pattern is you have the full alphabet. And so it's on the front and the back here, and you have your fabric, you have your outside and your lining and your pocket. All of these are 6 by 9. And then you also have your fusible batting. We're going to show you how to use that. And then of course your page batting. The other thing that we've thrown in for you is we've thrown in my 3 favorite needles. I have lots of favorite needles, but these are ones that we'll be using for our projects while we're sewing. So one we'll use today is this straw needle, the thin one on the top. And then there's a 24-inch chenille needle, and then a size 7 embroidery needle. And we're going to talk about needles again in a second. Also in your box from us, if you remember, or if you've seen it, we have some notions that are in there for you of different things that you'll use along the way. One of those things is a mechanical pencil, and you'll need your pencil for today's project. Because I don't know if I mentioned, we're going to be doing fusible web, and then we also have this fun little color that we put down for your monogram. So you have a printed pattern that is in your kit, and also in your printed pattern there's also there's a heart, a flower, a moon, a couple other different things depending upon what you want to put on the front of your cover. All right, so before we get into it, we want to talk about a couple things, and the first thing is, let's talk about needles first, because we might not come back up here again in a little bit. So let's talk about needles for just a second. So I think you already know the answer, but between a size 7 embroidery needle and a size 5 embroidery needle, which one do you think is bigger?
A 7.
You would think that, because that's normal, but no. In
What?
needles, I know. In needles, a size 5 is bigger, even though it's a smaller number. In a size 7 or a size 9 embroidery needle, which one do you think is bigger?
The 9.
No, a size 7. The smaller the number, the bigger the needle. One of the biggest needles that I use is a size 1. Isn't that weird? I know.
That is tiny. That should be tiny.
It should be tiny. It's humongous. It's humongous. So it's a weird thing. So the reason that we mentioned that too is that we put in an assortment of needles that I think seems usable. So a size 7 embroidery needle will work for pearl cotton and for 6-strand. But if you're not sure what you want to use, you know, the size of your hand or the size of the thread that you're using, I recommend that people get an assortment, because you might find that you want to make sure that the thread will go through the eye of the needle. You also want to make sure that that needle will make a big enough hole for the thread to go through.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to have to pull on things. When I was little, we didn't have a lot of variation for needles. And so I used to have a piece of a pair of needle nose pliers. And once I would stitch, I would have to grab with the pliers to pull my needle out. We should never have to do that anymore. If you can't get your needle through your fabric, you get a bigger needle, which means a smaller size. So weird. I know. Super weird.
You mean a smaller number?
A smaller number. Oh, that's right. Did I say smaller size? Yes, thank you. A smaller number will be a bigger size.
Right. It's the weirdest thing.
It's the weirdest thing, yes. And we have some, we'll show up close that this one is a size 5. And the size 5 you can see when we put it next to the size 7. Look at the difference in size. It's pretty strange. And then here, this one, I know, this one is a size 18 chenille. If we put that one next to the size 24, look at this. This needle and this needle is the same needle. But
different.
Look at the different size. It's because one is an 18, which is way bigger than the size 24.
This one's huge.
I know, really huge. So you would use a big, huge chenille needle for some really large yarns if you're doing some like cool work and embroidery. And this one is for hand stitching seams closed. And we're going to use this one, the one that's on the top here. We're going to use when we finish our project just to whip stitch something closed, and I'm going to show you that. Okay, so let's talk about the fusible web for a second. So of course we did a whole bunch of fusible web stuff in the last class when we did our little broderie purse project. So this is the same idea, it's the exact same product. So this is our Steam a Seam 2. We've got the 2 papers on it. But what we're going to do is we're going to put a little monogram on it, or at least that's my thought. You can do a couple different things, but I kind of thought it's not very big, so you can't put a full word, but you could maybe put Eliza Rose. You could maybe do an E and an R, or you could do something like that. But so what we're going to do is, what's interesting is that when you trace something and then you iron it to the back side of something, what will happen is it will flip it. And so when you have a B that's supposed to look a certain way, when we trace it and we iron it to the wrong side and we cut it out, your B will be backwards. So the reason that that's important to note is that it's important to note on, I said that kind of funny. That's an important thing to note when you're doing the alphabet or something that, it's really going to matter. Why am I doing a B? Are we making this for Brianna?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do a couple letters.
Yeah.
Okay, so the B, though, I knew that this was important. The E we might be able to flip over, but the B is critical. Okay, so if I were to cut this out, iron this to the back side, by the time it's going to sit like this, right? Mm-hmm. So by the time I ironed my B down, my B would be backwards. And so what you do is, again, you do have to use a pencil when you're writing on this, because this is kind of it's like a wax paper, and so ink will skip and you'll end up with weird kind of ink marks everywhere. So that's why you need to use your pencil. So all you have to do is flip this around. And if you can't see it very well, this is a regular, this is a fabric felt marker actually. And I could go ahead and put this on a window to be able to see behind it. Or if I just trace over it with this fabric marker, then what happens, do you know what's going to happen? It's nice and bold, so then when I flip it around, I'm able to see it. Right? That's a whole lot of work to go through, but it's totally important, because now I'm going to flip it around to the side that I want, because I have now reversed my B. If this doesn't make sense to you while we're doing it, the first time you do it wrong, you'll go, oh, that's what she meant. And you'll know. I had scissors here. Oh, here's some scissors. The only other thing you'll need for your project are some good scissors. Yeah. Okay, so, and an iron. And a sewing machine.
Of course, I'm going to need an iron.
You're going to need an iron. Okay, so this was the right way when we traced it. We are wanting to use the back side. So again, with our paper.
Right.
So it's right. That's exactly right. So when we pull that apart, we have to remember that sticky stuff, we learned this last time, right?
Yeah.
It's on the wrong side. I want this one. So when I open that up, I'm going to grab that little sheet of fusible web, and I'm going to make sure that it's over on that side. See what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
So when I pull this one off, this is garbage. This is now going to go on the wrong side of my fabric. And I chose this kind of cool red one just because we picked this black and white fabric, and so we really think that the red is kind of cool with that. Then you just heat it. My iron wasn't very warm. It turns off when I'm not paying attention to it. It's like Lizzie. All right. So once we've fused this down, we're going to cut that out. You want to cut that out on the line? And let me show you a little trick. To cut out the centers for your letters, you just kind of poke it first, right? Do you ever do that? And then get in there. And then once you get in there, then
you start cutting.
You can start cutting around there. Okay. So here's our B that's cut out, and now you can see it's facing the right way. It looks like a regular B. Whereas if we would have used this one and would have sewn it on, put it on the back, it would be facing the opposite way. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's why we do it like that. So we've got the B ready to go. And again, if you've got other leftover bits from last week, because gosh, we had the hearts, that's what we used, or we had some flowers, some cute little daisies. There's all kinds of stuff. Or you might have some other fabric at home that has some really cool motifs, and you want to do that same broderie purse technique that we've already done. Or the other option is to take your alphabet, and you can enlarge this or shrink this down. So if you really do want to go ahead and put your whole name on there and cutting is not a problem for you, just shrink it down. These are, I think, 3-inch letters, so you can make them as small as you want. Or you can actually make them bigger. What we did with these was we made these bigger, and then we put a little bit of felt. We just fused them. We did the exact same thing as this. And then as soon as we got to this step, we fused them to some felt and cut them out. And then on our design wall, whenever we're in here playing, the babies, the little girls can be in here and they can stick things. They can't spell yet, but maybe at some point they'll be able to. So
yeah, and you can even tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same letter. Yep, you just make it bigger.
But it's huge.
Yeah, just enlarge it, or, you know, whatever. You can make it whatever size you want, but then it makes it kind of fun. So anyway, once you've decided what you want to put on the front, let's look at our kit again. We've got 2 pieces. This is the inside and the outside. This is the pocket. And then we have the 2 pieces of batting, which we'll talk about in a second. So the outside, we're just going to fold it in half, and we're going to press it, put a little crease on it. That way we know the front of it. And so once we know the front of it, we'll know where we want to put our bee or our flowers or whatever we want to put. So let's go ahead and decorate the front of our needle case. Okay, so this is Eliza's design. So it could stand for either Eliza Rang or Eliza Rose. And these were some of the little hearts that she had left over from her project from last week. And I just want to mention one other thing, and that is that as you are cutting through Fusible Web, you will notice that you get a whole lot of gunk on your scissors. And that is just residue from your Fusible Web. That's why we like to use Teflon coated scissors, because it doesn't get quite so bad. But to clean those, you just need a piece of wool. This is not felt, this is wool. And so if you need some, let me know and I'll just throw some in your package. And in fact, I think that there's a piece in your kit. But all you have to do is, if you watch that, see what happens is that wool will slowly get all of that gunk. This is not a piece of wool that you're going to use for anything else, but you can see that it gets all of the gunk off of your scissors. So you want to clean your scissors after you've done the Fusible Web. The other thing that you need to do is that Fusible Web, we talked about this last week and mentioned that when we put the Fusible on top of cards and bookmarks and tags, it doesn't really matter, but when we put it on something that we might have to wash, you do have to sew it down. So what's going to happen is Eliza is going to go over to the sewing machine and she's going to sew this down. Now, when you've done your design, you do want to stay at least an inch in from all of your sides, because we're going to end up sewing this down and you'll have seam allowance. So if you come too far over to the side, you will lose part of your image. So we're just going to open this up. Once we've stuck this down, I don't think we've actually ironed it yet. We're going to iron it down, and then she's going to go over with the sewing machine and she's just going to sew all the way around those. So you could do it by hand, do a little blanket stitch if you want to, do a little decorative stitch. You could do a satin stitch. We're just going to do a quick little straight stitch, which I think is going to be super cute. Okay, so the trickiest part really is sewing down the alphabet, but
Yes.
she did a great job. She decided on Eliza Rose, so stitched all the way around all of it, so did a great job. And so now what happens is it's just the two little seams to sew everything together. You do have two pieces of batting, and I had mentioned that we were going to talk about that later. So you have one that is soft and smaller. This one is what is going to be your pages for your needles. And then one that is a little bit bigger and bumpy.
I
right?
don't like the bumpy.
I know, the bumpy feels kind of funny, but the reason that it's bumpy, and if you feel it, it's bumpy on one side, soft on the other. You don't have to use fusible fleece or fusible batting, but that's what we decided to put in the kit, because then you don't have to worry so much about pinning and things don't slide so much. So that's what we liked, and we thought maybe you should maybe kind of try it a little bit. So the fusible fleece and batting, kind of an interchangeable word, be kind of careful about that, because fleece is also a type of fabric that is not batting. But anyway, when somebody says fusible fleece, they are actually talking about batting. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the wrong side of the front, put that fusible side down of our batting, and we're just going to press it. So it'll iron down, and you really could put it down on the other side as well, but I just always like it to be on the front, because I think that that gets a little bit more abuse than the inside. And so it's the same reason that I put fusible batting on the outside of a purse rather than in the lining, for the same reason, because you think about what part wears out first, and it's almost always the outside. All right, so that's been fused down. So that is nice and stuck, which makes it kind of nice. So we're going to put that there. And then we have our other piece. This is, of course, our inside.
Yes.
And this is our pocket. So our pocket, what we chose, if you have one of our kits, is we chose this little ruler fabric. So what'll happen is when you fold this over, and in the pattern it says that you fold it over long edges together, one will be, the letters will be right side up, and one, the letters will be wrong side up. So when you press this, we're just going to fold this over wrong sides together, long edges together, and then what we're going to do is lay this down like this, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine. We're going to measure over about 2.5 inches from this left hand side and sew a little seam. We're going to back stitch here at the top, and then we're going to sew all the way down. And what I would do is just find a line that's matching up and do that. All this is this is just what is going to be your pocket for the back, so that you can put your needles or scissors or whatever you'd like in the back. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we'll be right back. Okay, so Eliza has sewn our little, about roughly 2.5 inches in. And if I didn't mention it before, these sizes of these pieces, they are all 6 inches by 9 inches. That was just the size that we picked for this. That's what's in your kit. But again, you can make whatever size you'd like at home. All right, so she's got this part done. So now what we're going to do, this was our front. We've got this laid down right side up. We're going to take this one and do right sides together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple little pins right down here on the side, and then she's going to backstitch, sew all the way around, come back and backstitch. And then what we'll do is we'll clip our corners, we'll turn it right side out, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so she has sewn all the way around, so now what she has to do is turn it inside out. But before she does that, sometimes what's a nice thing is just to go ahead and clip off the corners just a tiny bit, and then what will happen is that will give you a little bit less bulk. The other thing that I want to show you is that if you decide that you want to do rounded corners, let me show you this one. See, we went ahead and we just did rounded corners on this. All you would do is where you've done this, what we did is we actually took a bobbin. We put the bobbin right on the corner there and we drew a little line, and then that was what we did is we just went ahead and sewed just a little curve, and that was what we did to make a curved corner if you would rather do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over, do you want a curved corner or a straight corner?
I want a straight corner.
Straight corner, okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out, and we're going to move over to the ironing board for that. Okay, so we've turned it right side out, and one thing that you can use to reach in and poke out those corners is their purple thang, which is kind of nice. It actually has a flat edge on it as well as kind of a pokey edge, and it's also a bodkin. So if you are ever threading elastic through a pair of pants or something, it works also for that. It's a really inexpensive tool that's kind of nice to have around. Your other option, the other thing that you can do is you can use a pin, and you can just reach in there and kind of pull out so that your corner comes out nice and straight. Oftentimes they end up a little bit rounded anyway, just because of that bulk. That's why I end up trimming a little bit off, and oftentimes it's just why I go ahead and round the edges anyway. Okay, once your corners are done, then your last step is you just fold this over, and we're just going to give this a good press so that we know where the center is of our needle case. And then what we're going to do, this is our last little piece of batting, and this I should be about the right size. If you feel like you want to trim it down just a little bit so it's not hanging over too much, all you're going to do is just put it right in the center, and then we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew. We're going to back sew all the way down and back sew. And I'm going to show you on this one. So then you'll see what we did. That's all we did here, is we just back sewed all the way down and back sewed, and that's what our little page is. The other thing that does is that gives us just a nice little seam so that it closes fully. So that's all that's left. Eliza's going to sew a seam there. She's going to sew this closed, and she's all done. So well, we hope you've enjoyed making your little needle case with us. And I just wanted to mention, if this is the first time that you've done any fusible web applique, it is a really addicting thing to do. There's all kinds of patterns that you can use, and there's some really nice Christmas books. It's kind of that time of year right now. This is one in particular that's really nice because it's got tons and tons. Let me get to the pages. Well, it's got a lot of hand embroidery patterns, which is nice. Lots and lots of that, but it's got more hand embroidery patterns. Oh, but I know it has fusible. More hand embroidery patterns. Lots and lots of patterns in here, but a whole bunch of these fusible web patterns. And I think it has it's even like a pull-out pages for all of these different things to be able to make all of these projects. And that's how all of these are done. It's just tracing it with a pencil onto your fusible web product, ironing it to the wrong side of your fabric, and then it's almost like, I don't know, paper doll-ish, where you're just sort of layering everything together. There's different ones. Art to Heart, she has got tons and tons and tons of books, and all of her stuff is done fusible web. So she's got lots of Christmas things, she's got seasonal books, and oftentimes what she will do is she has already reversed the pattern for you, which is really nice, and you'll see that in her patterns. You'll notice that the letters are already backwards, and she'll write that on the pattern that it's been reversed for you when something needs to be reversed, which is sort of nice. Your other option is to get some things that are pre-cut. You can find these all over. You can find them in your local quilt shop. Some of the things that we carry, we like the whole kit and caboodle, and this is kind of cool because what they've done is they have the whole little pattern here, and there's different things you can put this on, whether it's a mug rug or a table runner or a pillowcase. But what they've done is they've fused everything, and they've already cut it out for you. So then all you have to do is you just layer it, and they have all of the directions there, and they show you how to layer everything and stitch it together. So they've done all the work. So for 15 bucks, they have traced it, cut it out perfectly with a laser cutter, and picked out all of the fabrics for you. There's even some little embellishments. There's buttons, and I don't know if you can hear it, there's little bells and stuff in there. So there's things like that. Or you can get large bulk packages. So this one, for $19, there's 50 pre-cut stars in all kinds of colors. So we've got stars, we have hearts, we have circles, we even have some hexes, and super popular this time of year and currently in stock are the pre-cut snowflakes. So there's the small ones, and I think these are 3 inches, or there's the big ones, and there's 2 each of 3 designs, and so same thing, about $11, $12. So anyway, all kinds of different things. If you've not done fusible web before, maybe it's something that opens a whole new door for different ways to be able to decorate things. So we hope you've had a great time, and we'll see you in a week for our next project for beginners. Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.